Coming to you live from the internet, it's not sure how much more mobility innovation I can take. On tonight's show we examine the most and least important topics in mobility technology, from the admittance of robo-taxi companies that humans will be needed in their final product, to how many versions of Tesla's FSD Beta 10.69 before it stops being terrible. Plus, a trans-Pacific joyride and a conversation with our very special guest, CEO and co-founder of Polymath Robotics Stefan Seltz-Axmacher. Plus, a trans-Pacific joyride and a conversation with our very special guest, CEO and co-founder of Polymath Robotics Stefan Seltz-Axmacher. And now, here are your hosts, Ed Niedermeyer and Mahmood Hikmet.
Hello and welcome to Not Sure How Much More Mobility Innovation I Can Take. I'm sorry, I'm a little flustered. I can't believe that Scooter, our idiot AI announcer, actually got my name right this time. I am Ed Niedermeyer.
Yeah, and I'm Mahmood Hikmet. Scooter, what's up? Like, I'm not complaining that you got our names right this time, but it's very unlike you.
Yeah, I thought I'd just say my lines and get out of here. Antagonizing you is a lot of work, and I'd rather just go on holiday.
Holiday? Did chatbots?
Holiday?
Yeah. Like, what's happening? What's a holiday? What's a chatbot holiday?
If Ed's allowed to go on holiday, I'm allowed to go on holiday.
Scooter, look, it's okay. You can stay a little longer if you want. I think it might be time to turn over a new leaf and just be kinder to each other. And look, I promise if you stick around, we'll be nicer to you. Like I don't know, Ed'll be nicer to you. I'll be nicer to you. We can get on and run a show together.
I'm out. Bye.
God damn it,
Right.
Scooter.
There's no fix again.
Also, Scooter may have gotten our names right, but he actually got our guest's name wrong. So
that's just what he does. He's I think
he
that
gets
one
names wrong.
That one must have been accidental on his part, because usually he does it to prove a point.
Right, and usually he has some kind of something to say for himself, and this time he just kind of screwed it up.
It just seems like he's checked out mentally.
That's what you get for relying on artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Even for something as simple as getting a name right. All right, Moody, we have a show to do here, and I think we actually have some material for it, even though
Yep.
this is our least prepared show ever. So let's move to our segment where we look at all the most and least important things in the news of the last couple of weeks, our week in review, even though it actually covers 2 weeks.
Great. Do you want to start on this, or am I starting on this?
Why don't you go ahead and take the first story?
All right. The pioneering eVTOL company Kitty Hawk, which was founded by former Google self-driving car project leader Sebastian Thrun, is closing down, Bloomberg reports. The startup, which has been founded by Google co-founder Larry Page, was one of the first major players in a space that has attracted considerable hype. Of course, the most important takeaway from this development should be obvious. If Larry Page isn't sure how much more mobility innovation he can take, what chance do any of us have?
Really provocative question. An early estimate of road fatalities in the first half of 2022 shows that this all-important metric may have actually declined in the second quarter, a rare ray of positive news amidst a troubling multi-year trend of increasing road deaths. Of course, over the entire first half of the year, the number of fatalities is still up by about 0.5% compared to 2021, which is more or less exactly what we've come to expect from rare rays of positive news these days.
Bloomberg reports that members of Faraday Future's board of directors have received death threats amid a boardroom struggle over whether to raise fresh funds or pursue bankruptcy, which raises the obvious question, how is Faraday Future still alive?
I mean, anybody who saw their CES show, what was it, like 2017, 2018? I don't know. Like, it's mind-boggling. Maybe we should do a whole Faraday Future episode sometime.
Yeah.
If any topic is worthy of this show, it's that company. The Detroit Auto Show took place last week, marking the debut of the revamped summertime version of the beloved show. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, apparently that's the entire news. Nothing else actually happened. I guess President Biden showed up, but that's it. Yeah, like it was a car show.
Yeah, I think there was more than one like car show this last week. There's the World Congress at the same time as well. There's all happening at the same time. In its latest significant rulemaking report, the auto safety regulator NHTSA revealed its upcoming plans for a rule that would require all light vehicles to be capable of V2X communication using the DSRC standard. Those plans include next action undetermined with a project publication date of the 0th of the 0 of the year 0000.
In other words, everything in the realm of V2X is going completely as normal, like exactly like it has been for the last 30 years.
I did my PhD on V2X, and it's really like, even I'm saying like, it's not going to happen in the way that like people thought it would 15 to 20 years ago. And I was all in. I spent like a good chunk of my hairline on this issue. And I'm willing to let it go to an extent.
V2X was one of those things that when I was like, getting into the space or, kind of really, especially getting into autonomous driving stuff, I wasn't sure if like I should really spend the time on V2X. And Eric Paul Dennis, who I don't know if he's watching or listening, but is from the Center for Automotive Research. I was hanging out with him very informally. So he's formerly of Center of Automotive Research, and we had a beer, and I was like, Eric, like, V2X, like what's the deal? Should I really like pay attention to it? And he basically was like, oh, I know all about it, and started explaining, and then like stopped himself and was like, you know what, like just the answer is no. Like you don't have to bother paying attention.
Look, though to be fair, we're going into a whole like V2X discussion because I have feelings about this, but it's like I think the pendulum's swinging back towards V2X, but it's not settling in the same place that people thought it would 15 to 20 years ago. Like V2X looks different and occupies a different part of the transport thing. But for people that treat it like, oh yeah, we're going to have virtual traffic lights in the next 10 years with traffic weaving between itself. Just, no, those are unhinged, like completely disconnected people.
I feel like the best way to sum up V2X is that like by the time sort of the industry and government and everyone sort of started to make progress on like the politics of like agreeing on a standard and a spectrum and all that stuff, the DSRC standard like more or less was completely replaced by entirely new technology.
Yeah, and then like
which just goes to show like,
and the US like got rid of half the spectrum, and then and then like the US and Europe aren't aligned, and Japan's off doing something like in the 700 megahertz. There's just no. All right, let's sideline DSRC talk. Go with the next one.
Okay. Ferrari last week revealed the brand's first ever sport utility vehicle, a $400,000 confection called the Puro Sangue, which is, of course, Italian for racist. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's pure blood. Anyway, the initial reviews are largely positive. They actually suggest that the Puro Sangue is the perfect vehicle in which to escape the pitchfork-wielding hordes who just want to have a little talk with you about why you bought a $400,000 SUV called Pure Blood at this particular moment in history.
Yeah, Pure Blood's not a 2022. It's not a 2020. It's not a 2008 vehicle. Like it's not a 1950 vehicle. Like, yeah, the world's moved on from Pure Blood.
I mean, has it though? I think
fair criticism. I just didn't. I wouldn't have expected like Ferrari to pivot in that direction, though.
Yeah. All right. So our last story, Moody, take us there.
All right. Elon Musk fan fiction website Electric reported this week that Tesla is creating a virtual version of San Francisco using a simulator built on the Unreal Engine, which means perception hardware isn't the only part of Tesla's driving automation development program that's stuck in 2016.
I have to say, this is the story that I got I actually had, it's funny, now I get like people from the AV sector will actually like DM me and be like, can you make sure to include that story? Because it's just one of those things where it's like, as far as the Tesla fans are concerned, like this is cool. Like it's a whole city in like Unreal Engine simulation. Like,
I just don't
everyone
know.
in the AV sector is just like,
Yeah, I don't know why they're bothering to do the whole put the vehicles in like a space where you can like crash the vehicles into things or run over people when they're actually doing that in real life. Like, what advantage would they have simulating San Francisco when they're already pushing like untested, badly verified software that's really dangerous already into San Francisco?
no, it's a really good point, Moody, because honestly, like the other AV companies absolutely would not be investing in their own simulation solutions if they had fans who are willing to literally put their own children in harm's way to test these vehicles.
Oh no, it's not just the children, it's the children and other people on the road as well.
Fair. That's true. I guess so I guess it's just like purely an ethical thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, usually right about now we check in on the war on 5 is what we're calling it. A lot of people don't know that there's a war on these days. There's so many, right? Like it's hard to keep track of them all as Americans. We're used to our war sort of receding into the background a little bit. But on this show, we want to make sure that people are aware we don't do the show every week, but like every time we do a show, we want to make sure people are aware there's a war on against SAE's level 5 driving automation. Moody, do we have an update on that?
We do. Thank you very much, Ed. I'm currently in the midst of a battle against the SAE from within. I've infiltrated the SAE. I've gotten behind enemy lines. Of course, the target here that we're going after is SAE level 5. We need to like come in here and we need to capture and more or less eliminate this target entirely. Battle lines have been drawn. We do have a sort of a line that's down here. Everyone agrees this side is all okay. This side is safe. Everyone level 4 down all the way even to level 0 of automation, which isn't really automation, is all okay. That's all fine. However, we need to get into level 5. We need to eliminate it. Currently, I've been attacking it on one front. I've just been doing a brute force sort of attack. I've been going in
like a frontal assault is what the generals are telling me.
Yes, but the term frontal assault means something different in 2022, so I can't use that terminology exactly. But okay. Yes, that's what it is. I've put in work items. Work item has been denied though. So officially, the stance of the SAE is that they are supporting SAE level 5. They've put a border around it and they've said this is impenetrable. So what we need to do is we need to find a way around. We need to plot our way around and maybe attack it from potentially going up to even like a pseudo level 6. Or mining using the power of memes and to bring it down from the inside.
Yeah. First, though, this defensive action that the committee is waging, my understanding is that they've moved in some elite sort of bureaucratic forces that have been, sort of really highly trained in the art of just like slowing down any kind of bureaucratic process. And that's been sort of the main obstacle that your offensive has come up against. Apparently, these are units that have been training for like 30 years in some cases to just make sure that nothing ever happens in these committees. Is that sort of an accurate report from the ground?
That is relatively accurate. The main problem that we're having is we're coming in as sort of outsiders, whereas level 5 was created from the same bureaucratic fibers that are being used to make all the other levels as well. So it's going to be very difficult to only attack level 5 and bring that down without harming the other levels. So we might be in a situation where the levels themselves need to all be eliminated and replaced with maybe something else entirely. I don't know yet. It's still early days, but I'm on the front lines and I'll keep you updated for next time.
Well, thank you for that, Moody. First of all, thank you for your service. You know, we support our troops out there, you know, fighting in this war. It's an important war. I think, you know, I know everyone watching supports it wholeheartedly. We've all got our ribbons around the oak tree. And we're all, you know, pulling for you. And you know, of course, we'll be sure in our next episode.
Look, I didn't set out to be called a hero by anyone. But if anyone wants to call me a hero, I'm not going to stop them from doing that. I think this is, yeah.
Can we get a Moody's a hero in the chat? All right. So we probably should go ahead and stop messing around and bring out our extremely patient and our guest today, right?
Yep.
Are we ready? Do we have any other like dumb material before we actually?
No. We got all of that out of our system, so now we can start talking seriously.
It'll all be very serious from here on out. All right. Well, with that, let's bring him on out here. I'm very, very thrilled to have him here for the first time from Polymath Robotics, Stefan Seltz-Axmacher. Stefan, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Hey,
is now when I introduce myself as someone working on level 6 autonomy, or should I go right to level 7 because like level 6 is so 20 minutes ago?
Yeah, I mean, well, talk to us about that. Is level 6 mean like is that like interplanetary automation or?
Well, yeah, when I think of level 6, really what I think from an SAE level is an autonomous vehicle that can drive vehicles that haven't even been thought up right now. So, you know, like when we think of a hovercraft, like why can't your current autonomy product also drive that? When you think of, you know, a Starship vehicle, like that same code base should be able to drive that. It's really all vehicles in all dimensionality all the time. And if you're building anything less than that, then frankly, your machine learning just isn't up to snuff.
No.
You haven't used enough Unreal Engine. And that's what I've always had to say about that.
more video game training data.
Yeah, you need
to. My autonomy company is exclusively trained on EVE Online.
So I actually have a different. I agree that there should be a level 6 and a level 7 and maybe even a level 8. But I actually have a slightly different interpretation of what they should be. Because no one, like as far as the general public is concerned, these are all just numbers anyway. Like they're just, one is, you know, the bigger number is just better, right? What SAE should do is they should make a level 6, a level 7, a level 8. Not really define them, just let people assume that the bigger number is better, and then charge the companies that want to claim to be developing them for the right to use it, right? Because look, right now, level 5 is not real. It's just a thing that like basically the most shameless company out there is willing to say that they're trying to do. So why not just create more of that, right? Like there's a market. Tesla's shown there's demand for levels of autonomy that have no real world relevance, and they're purely about creating marketing hype. So create a couple more of those, and like the SAE will actually like start bringing in some money.
Listen, if you pay an extra $17,000, I will upgrade your car to level 42 autonomy. One-time payment. If you don't know what that's capable of, then frankly, you don't know enough about this.
You guys are joking, but like, what's currently happening in the task force is like, so rather than getting rid of level 5, now level 5 is going to be redefined, and what seems to be the direction that it's going in is level 5 is going to be the bounds of a country, like the borders of a country. So, which seems like
participation trophies for roboticists.
So like level 6, I think would be like everywhere on planet Earth, and then level 7 would be like anywhere in our solar system. And then level 8 could be like in our galaxy. Level 9, we could start talking about like intergalactic travel.
Breaking news is that Tesla and SpaceX are apparently working on level 7 applications right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, as long as SpaceX is involved, they don't have a problem with using LiDAR, so maybe there's a shot. Okay, this is fine. I love the jokes, but like, Stefan, you are the CEO and founder of a serious robotics company. And in fact, I was just rereading. So Polymath Robotics. I want to learn more about it, but I want to start with a question that comes from my good friend, co-host from the Autonocast, Kirsten Korosek. Wrote had the exclusive on your new company, and in her report over at TechCrunch, she mentioned, actually your investors mentioned, it was sort of brought up a couple times, that the goal of Polymath, or a goal of Polymath Robotics, is to be the oracle of the robotics world. And so I want to start off our conversation by asking, the question, how many lawyers have you hired yet?
I mean, obviously one lawyer per line of code. How else can we defend ourselves? Incidentally, we desperately need to raise more money.
Seriously though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oracle jokes aside, which we could probably spend another 10 minutes.
I can't think of like any company that's like the polar opposite of a startup than Oracle. Like that is like
Yeah, I mean, so the thing that is interesting, my overall thesis is that robotics today actually looks a lot more like how software did back in the 80s and 90s than it looks like mobile app development in 2022. And if you to stretch that comparison out, robo-taxis are a bit like trying to build an iPhone in 1985. And not just, the battery technology, not just the chipset, not just the operating system, but also, let's call it the top 25 apps that you use on a day-to-day basis. And why not build all of that from scratch in 1985? And now, there were pen computers back then, but the really valuable use cases, the use cases that really built a whole market, were things that solved big enterprise needs. And it was Oracle and SAP who were really able to capture that. And both of those are tools that are super, super powerful if you have a smart engineer around to set them up and make them work the right way, right? Like you can't just swipe a credit card on Rippling.com or sign up on Gmail and all of a sudden you have Oracle running, all of a sudden you have SAP. It's more like, we think we want to change the way that we run Frito-Lay. Let's drop $100 million building an Oracle instance. Now I got promoted because of my great Oracle purchase to run all of Pepsi. And I had to drop another $250 million to use Oracle for Pepsi. Similarly, the state of robotics today is such that if you're automating, say, wheel loaders in a lumber port, the way that those vehicles drive from point to point is not all that different from, say, how a skidder drives in a forest camp, or how an industrial forklift moves around a sawmill. And that same forestry company has a desire to buy the same piece of software that they know is going to work in one, and therefore it's de-risked for the other two applications. Problem right now is everyone's building everything from scratch for every instance, which means maybe you can find someone on the forklift side, but you can't find anyone on the skidder, and you can't find anyone on that wheel loader. So all of that technical due diligence you had to do to buy a industrial scale autonomous forklift, you have to repeat that, and the market struggles with that. I think the large billion-dollar industrial company market wants there to be a brand that you can trust, and similarly, developers want a whole bunch of this standard stack that they have to build time and time again. They want to just be able to buy that, complain about how much it sucks compared to what they theoretically build on their own, and then build their whole business around Stripe or around Twilio. And when they're starting it, of course, one day we'll take credit card processing in-house, we'll take text message sending in-house, but as they're successful, that's not really the things that they do. So our review is, for the large industrial companies, we want to build that Oracle or that SAP-like company. And for the startups and tech companies who want to automate industrial vehicles, we want to build Stripe, we want to build Twilio, we want to build Shopify, something that lets them focus on the actual behaviors that their market cares about. I should say that the tagline of it is like at Polymath, we're building general autonomy software for industrial vehicles. Probably should have said that before I gave a 20-minute spiel.
Well, no, so I mean, if you could sort of just break that vision, which I think makes sense. I mean, for me, the whole Oracle of robotics world made perfect sense when you said this is gonna be something that I could totally do a better job if I just did it myself, but it wouldn't be economically viable, right? That's the deal with these companies, right? No one loves Oracle, but the economics of it makes sense.
Overly buzzwordy in robotics, there's a bit of an inverse Pareto principle. like the opposite of an 80-20 rule, where the stuff that takes 80% of your technical effort, or more realistically, 95% of the technical effort, is stuff that customers are kind of like, well, yeah, that's cool. Of course, you can drive from one side of this airport to another. Can you integrate with my legacy Oracle system that says when baggage should move from this place to that place? Is there an app that the foreman at my mine can click a button in to say that this particular truck is ready to take material to processing? Neat that you can till a field. I don't really care about tillage. Can you drag this implement across my apple orchard and spray chemical on the apples? And if you can't do that specific behavior for me, I don't really care. And the reality is, like, those little pieces are super, super, super valuable to customers, are trivial to build relative to standing up all of autonomy, but almost every autonomy company dies before they get to build them, because all of their engineering effort goes into, can we tell if there's a human within 20 meters? If we know that there's a human within 20 meters, will we come to a stop? When we accelerate, will we jerk on the brakes and jerk on the gas, or will we do it smoothly? Can we follow a path plan and relatively smoothly and cover the area that we're supposed to drive on? Those are like the things that everyone spends all of their time on.
Yeah. So what are the tool set like? What are the tool sets that you're providing to kind of make this happen?
Yeah. So essentially, we offer a generalizable. Did I just freeze?
Yeah.
I think you're okay.
You're back now, though.
Okay. Yeah, I've had shaky internet all day. We offer a very robust, very reliable, very adaptable basic autonomy layer for vehicles that can come to a stop when they get into trouble. So the top level of that is a REST API that, like, in Python, someone like me can say, go to this side of this port, go to this side of this mine. Within that is a behavior architecture, a teleop console, perception, control, safety engineering, a hardware abstraction layer that lets us drive it regardless of the sensors, regardless of the vehicle size, so that if you're a 95th percentile roboticist, you can focus on the specific parts of the robotics problem that are interesting to you. If you are a software guy who wants to add robots into your application, you can build this and deploy this without even necessarily knowing ROS. And that's closer to how reality should look. And as a way to get you started, if you go to our website, polymathrobotics.com, you can sign up right now, and we will spin up a virtual robot for you in Sim, which can take commands from the very same API as our actual robots can, and you can start building behaviors. So, like, we actually now have 3 simulated worlds, each of which has an example app alongside it. One of those example apps is a ripoff of Bear Flag Robotics. So in 150 lines of Python, you can replicate a company that John Deere bought for $250 million. Another example app is Outrider, and in 150 lines of Python, you can replicate what they've spent $100 million building. And the third example is essentially Caterpillar Mindstar, where in 150 lines of Python, it replicates a business that makes about $1 billion a year and is by far the most successful autonomy business in the world, despite only automating 2 models of equipment.
Actual autonomy business. We're not counting scams in that one for the folks keeping track at home. As Stefan pointed out on the Autonicast, there's only one most profitable autonomy business. And they don't even do autonomy. Moody, I'm sure you're unlike me, Moody's an actual AV engineer, so I'm sure you've got like a million serious questions here.
Well, it's like, it's serious. Like, I could like start to get in and start to talk about, especially the hardware abstraction layer. Like, I would want to talk about that, but also, I know that speaking about a hardware abstraction layer is going to like put people to sleep. So I'm not gonna do that right now.
Well, how about,
but one thing I did
instead of that, yes, go ahead.
One thing I did want to ask though is just like in your progression, Stefan, is like you're going from, because you're doing Polymath Robotics now, but like you started just before with Starsky as well, and you've been quite open about the journey of Starsky and sort of how that closed down, etc. With Starsky, can you just explain sort of the difference between like what
Yeah.
Starsky is and what Polymath is, because there is like a little bit of overlap there.
Yeah, so Starsky and Polymath are two very different bets based on the same premise.
Mhm.
And the premise is, robots are hard, autonomy is hard. There's not going to be a magic line of code some really smart PhD is going to crank out in the next week that's going to solve general artificial intelligence. And like there's some folks in the audience who I've lost with that statement, and that's fine. They were never going to love me anyway. But for everyone else who's been hearing news of autonomy next week for the last 7 years, that sounds about right. At Starsky, the way that we solve that problem is by being super, super, super vertical. We were taking pre-built trucks. We're adding a mechatronic system to make them drive by wire, adding compute, adding sensors, building an autonomy layer that had a bunch of teleop in it for hard use cases, had a pretty straightforward safety architecture so we could get confident on it, a software layer that then managed self-driving trucks, which like doesn't really exist or didn't really exist at the time.
Mhm.
And then to simplify the whole problem by making it harder, we were also being the trucking company. And essentially, like everyone who's made any real amount of progress in autonomy is at least doing the hardware integration, the autonomy, and the business logic. And then they're either building the operating business themselves, or they're building a brand new vehicle from scratch.
Yep.
And then you have some lucky winners like Zooks, who's like, why not YOLO? Let's do all 5 of these, because how hard can it be?
You're back now.
All right.
I was talking about Big Daddy Bezos. Should I repeat that part? Are we gonna get kicked out of?
We aren't using Twitch. This is all Google. So as long as you don't mention Larry Page, you're fine.
I was gonna say, and also having like hung out with Stefan at the end of one of the Autonocast parties and heard his real thoughts about Zooks. Let's be diplomatic.
Yeah, it's a hard problem. It's a hard problem to build robots these days. At Starsky, we solved it by being vertical, and frankly, to Zooks' credit, to Waymo's credit, to a lot of these, to Cruise's credit, the only way that you can really get a good chance at solving it so far has been be vertical, because there hasn't been any tooling and there hasn't been any meaningful parts of the stack that you've been able to buy from others. What we're doing.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so after Starsky, I tried to go live in SaaS land, thinking half the effort would make me rich. Realized SaaS startups are way less fun than robotics, and I'm clearly some flavor of a masochist. But like the thing that stuck out is like it's pretty easy to be a SaaS company. Like I would say about half of San Francisco, maybe 25%, could be the CEO of a unicorn SaaS company. Like it's not a very high bar. You do not have to, you like need to focus on things like execution, but there's not big technology risk. Your co-founder can be a generalist who like ties together building blocks. They don't have to be like the world's smartest software engineer. It's more of a like, how do we get to product market fit quickly and like scale up sales? Whereas in robotics, without having a super A+ technical team who are individually capable of building everything in the stack, you're not really possible to get anywhere. And that's like a big like, oh crap, this is why robotics, the space that I love, sucks so much. That this is why like so many billions of dollars have been deployed with so few robots actually doing anything of value. Now, like ever since Starsky went through YC, I've watched industrial autonomy company after industrial autonomy company. And the problem is they all do this super vertical path and they like end up being an unsellable product. Because if I'm doing autonomous tractors and you use the wrong type of tractor, I can't sell to you. If I'm doing autonomous excavators and you want a bulldozer, I can't sell to you. If I do autonomous Cat 988s, but instead of using them to shovel up really thick dirt, you use them to shovel up, wood pellets, I can't help you. Which like doesn't really work in the market.
Can't do like an import shovel.wood pellets on the top?
Nope, for some reason. For some reason that infrastructure hasn't existed. So the aha was like, in SaaS, like the companies at the right time in who are able to make a big impact in the equivalent of today's robotics world were the Oracles of the world, were the Stripes of the world, were the folks who took a big hard problem, threw an abstraction layer over 60 to 80% of it, and said you still have to be pretty smart to be able to use this and get anything valuable out of this. But like now you don't have to be the smartest person in the world who's hired 99 of the other smartest people in the world who never talk to customers, never think about product, and just crank on this. And lowering that bar is the thing that we're doing at Polymath, and enables robotics to go from, to use a corny phrase, enables robotics to go from science fiction to science fact. And like I would say, arguably, the entire robotics industry is still mostly science fiction. You have parkour robots that work 1 out of 200 times. You have autonomous systems that break down after a week of work. You have a whole bunch of this stuff that just isn't having the impact that it can have, and the impact's massive.
Sorry, not to interrupt, Stefan. You left out a crucial category, which is people in suits dancing. a critical element of the robotic space. Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah. And it's an incredibly critical part. But like honestly, these vehicles that we're looking at are incredibly dangerous. Like most of the time, when they hurt somebody, it's the operator is not the person who realizes it. It's the next person who drives by. Like these are massive, dangerous machines, and if you can build a world where fewer people need to be put in harm's way, where these vehicles can be smaller because there's no longer a labor shortage, you can both decrease the cost of living for kind of all of humanity and hurt a lot less people along the way, while I think making a pretty coin. So that sounds like a good thing to work on.
So that was all very compelling. But being the pot stirrer and shit starter that I am, I have to steer this towards like the really controversial aspect of this. And like, everyone needs to like, brace yourself here, because like things are gonna get a little real. But like, I can't help but notice that, as you say, robotics is hard. And that's sort of one of the common threads between both Starsky and Polymath. And, how that's sort of reflected is teleoperation, remote human operation is sort of an important part of both of these companies. And like, I just sort of want to read through the lines of this for a moment and just ask the awkward but like tough question that I just have to ask. Like, do you think that like humans are not completely worthless? Like, do you think there's some value that humans can possibly add to like the economy and like the things that sort of allow us to live the lives that we live today? Is that like,
really hot take, but I do not think humans are worthless.
Wow.
You heard it here first. I think there is value to our species.
RIP your Twitter mentions, man. Also, do you get out at all? Like, do you meet other humans? Like, are you?
I got these books. I'm good, right? I think it's actually like a very sad thing about our particular moment in history, that we're facing all of this automation that we already have enough money in the world for no one to go hungry. And we're facing all this automation that can alleviate, can improve that standard of living so much more. And it's a sad statement of our society that we're forced to deal with that as an existential threat and not as oh crap, we could be in utopia soon. And like, it's more than just robotics working that has to happen for that all to come true. But like, it's a pretty big thing that like we live in a world where we can get the materials we need out of the ground, out of the forests, out of anywhere that they are. We can use robots to make it cheaper to have nicer and nicer things, and can afford to give more and more people a standard of living that like 150 years ago was barely accessible to the richest of the rich and the most powerful of the powerful. And that's pretty neat. And I think like robotics, if we can unlock robotics, which I think we're going to do, if we can unlock robotics, the internet's going to seem like a little sideshow that was a cute thing for cat videos in terms of its impact on human civilization.
Yeah.
So since
Wow.
like humans are in the loop for now, like you were saying before that you didn't want to go like you were too vertical. So like humans sort of like put a nice cap on it, but that just means like next month when Tesla Optimus is done, you're just going to replace the human in your stack with like a robot sitting on a computer doing the things that the human's currently doing, and you can just get rid of the human, right?
Yeah, that'd be, sure. And then the week after that, OpenAI is to roll out Host E and CEO E, and this show will be done just by like 2 OpenAI bots joking around with each other. Well, maybe a human who they make jokes at the expense of to announce them in, and a CEO bot that says some nice broad platitudes.
Yeah, like my idea for a SaaS is we have an artificial intelligence that looks at how you use Twitter and then like flames people and annoys people on Twitter on your behalf. You can step away, and then it does that for the other person as well. And so like you can have a Twitter war with someone without either of you needing to log into that website. That's
a pretty buildable product.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone like me, like what do I do with my life at that point, right? Okay, but like we want to show what Polymath is making possible here, right? And so for those who don't already know, haven't suspected this already, Moody here is in New Zealand. He's in Auckland, New Zealand, right? And he is going to now share his screen and show. What's he going to show, Stefan? Like you've sent Moody a link. Like all we have right now is a link. So Moody, open a window if we can, and
I will.
Let's see what that link does.
Let me switch to this. Cool.
And I always feel like it's more fun as a surprise.
It's more fun of it. All right. I'll just paste it. Let's see where it goes. If we get banned.
All right.
Paste does not work all that well. Can you click on the link directly from the chat, and I'll just put it back in.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll
It's like a magic link.
I did that, and it still is asking me to log in.
Are you on a VPN?
Nope, I'm in New Zealand.
New Zealand, that's like Southern California, right?
It's nature's VPN.
Yeah,
it's just surrounded by a lot of oceans.
Yeah. Go to New York and start digging, and you'll get here.
And you've literally. Oh, I reckon there's a link shortener in this thing. Let me go to TinyURL.
All right.
They're a sponsor of yours, right? TinyURL.
Yeah, everyone's sponsoring it.
A really fun thing about this, or annoying thing about my life, is I hate it when people make me use Teams or Google Meet. Teams for self-explanatory reasons, but with Google Meet, they arbitrarily cut off the links, the length of most URLs, and they like cut it so that the same problem that just happened where it like was pushing you to a login screen. Whereas since I put it in TinyURL, now the actual thing's loading.
All right. Okay.
So
it's happening.
Yeah. So this is a tractor in Modesto, California. This is our test tractor driving live right now. No person's in it. No one's on site. The closest person on my team is about 85, 90 miles away in Foster City. On the bottom right of your screen, there's a button that says autonomy.
Yeah.
Could you do that for me?
All right, I've clicked it. It's
cool. Right below that is a diamond in the middle of a circle. Why don't you click and drag that diamond to either 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Or you can also do call it 10 o'clock because you're at the edge of our geofence.
All right, 10 o'clock.
This is a new UI,
wow.
Isn't it? Or is it?
No, it's the same UI. So we get this from our partner, a company called.
Am I just doing donuts now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could always steer more than just put it to 10 o'clock.
Yeah, try and run into something or like let's.
This is...
Yeah.
So
actually, why don't you turn around a little bit more? I'll show you where the gate is, and you can try to get to freedom.
All right, yeah, let's go on a road trip.
This is the road trip test. Does it road trip?
I see a highway.
Yep.
Is this
Yep, drive straight a little bit more.
straight?
Yep.
All right.
I mean, you're going at a blistering 2 miles an hour.
Yep.
And this is actually like a cool thing about our use case. This vehicle will do real damage if it hits you at 2 miles an hour. But like, we don't need to be like super tightly coupled with our perception system to spot a human 100 meters away when we're only going at 2 miles an hour.
It's like the
now when you turn towards the right, because over there is going to be the gate.
Okay.
Let's take this puppy on the highway.
Yeah.
A little bit more to the right.
This is like the.
By the way.
Oh, that's
Yep. Right where you see there's that gate. Yep.
Yep. There it is.
This is like the.
On the other side of that white thing that you're looking at.
Yeah, to the right a little bit. Yeah. See that?
Yeah.
You can see the. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Full speed. Ramming speed.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna.
Yep. You notice how you just got a lot slower, and now you're not moving.
On. I'm imprisoned.
Oh.
You,
That's
you hit our geo fence. So cheat codes that you don't get to use when you're on public roads. We can just say there's no reason for this vehicle to ever be outside of that zone that you just tried to leave.
Well, freedom is a reason. Leisure.
What's that?
Fun. Those are all reasons to be outside. What do you mean there's no reason?
Important industrial robotics customer concerns right there. Yeah. Like...
you can back out of the geofence. It'll just you'll back out at like I think half a mile or a mile per hour.
So what Stefan doesn't know is that we've also recently started Industrial Robot Review magazine, and you just scored a 0 stars on your road trip ability category. Sorry, like you have to work on that one. So Moody, let's try and get a sense of the handling here. I want you to tell me like what's the steering feel like, and then like do you think like at the limit does it more oversteer or more understeer?
The thing
like,
is,
this is also
latency's the big one for me. Of course, being in this is. I'll have to say though, this is like the most responsive transatlantic like real tractor that I've ever operated. This is actually really cool that like there's a field somewhere where I'm controlling a Is there anything to run over? Like, can I?
No, there isn't.
What is?
Hope not.
Hold on.
There's a rain barrel in there.
What is this?
When we're
what is that thing?
Mode, we don't stop you from hitting stuff.
There is something
we
here.
assume our teleoperators are professional.
All right. Yeah, I'm not part of your company, so I'm a user and I'm your edge case. What is this thing?
I want our audience to understand. We absolutely did ask Stefan if he would like allow his children to be in the field to see if we could avoid hitting them. Stefan, it turns out, does not have children, but if he did, he wouldn't let us nearly run over them in our remote operated tractor. So.
All right, we do have something here to interact.
It'd be more of a surprise if you got him in the field.
All right.
But before you hit that, I got this nice little yellow button here.
Oh
no!
Oh, party over!
Full steam! No!
I was gonna say because there's one on like right in front of or behind the steering wheel too, right? Mm-hmm. That's a red button.
Yeah. So we would have. So there's e-stops in the vehicle. There's e-stops on the outside of the vehicle. And I just used an e-stop over IP, which frankly is a board we had to craft together. We would love to open source. If someone who's listening wants to start a open source board company, I'd love to buy a bunch of these from you instead of having my co-founder build e-stops on the weekends for fun.
That's amazing. So okay, so practically speaking, right? Like obviously you're not a teleop company, right? Like you're not. People aren't paying you so that they can have people in one place drive things in other places. So like just functionally, I mean, you've talked a little bit about like, robotics is hard and that this is, one of the ways that you sort of get through some of the hard stuff. To practically speaking though, like what is a customer really going to be using this for, if not like, trying to escape the geofence and go for a road trip?
Yeah. So Mood, if you want to click the autonomy button again.
Sure.
Should start driving itself around. So this is what people buy us for. They buy us for a code base that you can issue commands to, and it goes and drives there without hitting stuff. The autonomy button will avoid that rain barrel. It will not drive over any obstacles that are watching there. It's going to watch for anyone who's going to try to jump into the field. But more than that, honestly, what's really big about this demo is it worked. And that's, in your guys' time in industry, that's rare. Essentially in robotics, since everybody has to be so vertical all the time, there's this tendency of you have a big demo next week, or you have a big demo today, and like the worst piece of code that you had to write for some corner of the product 9 months ago happens to fail today, and the demo gets scrapped. I do more demos most weeks for Polymath than I did in the totality of the 5-year Starsky journey, because it's like hard to make this stuff work. And like Moody was able to drive this without a Linux computer, I presume, without the right ROS nodes running, I presume.
Yeah.
And then like the system like worked. It started. It didn't fail. We're doing something like 6 to 8 hours a day of driving this tractor around this field, a big chunk of that time without needing a remote person to even be paying attention to it.
Wow. So I want to say, yeah,
something that most companies can't get to for like 3 to 6 years. We can sell that to you. Your customer, if you're building autonomy for an industrial vehicle, your customers don't give a crap about like ocean planning. They don't give a crap about like how perception works.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap about whether you're slightly better at navigating than your competitor is. They care about like, can you do this specific task that I care about?
Yeah.
Can I not roboticist like employee interact with the system and make it do things that are valuable? That's actually what's important in robotics. It's not all this minuscule shit that you have to work on and you have to make good if you're going to have a product in the first place.
Absolutely. Like so many times I've gotten into arguments with engineers that have found brilliant answers to very tough technical problems. And I'm like, it's great that you've managed to do this. I'm not going to tell the customer about it because no one cares that you've managed to like 1/8 the amount of latency, like bring it down like by an order of magnitude. But they're going to care about like, what shape is this button on the website where I interact with this thing? Like that is the product to them. And starting to talk
Like,
about that other
I've
stuff.
watched so many of these industrial autonomy companies who are like full of really smart, well-meaning engineers. They go like, they have a good enough background that they can raise $3 million. They go heads down for 18 months, barely talking to customers. And then at the 18-month mark, they have some poor schleb who like once said that they were interested in possibly getting robots. They make a big production of getting their robot to the customer's site. The customer sees it drive a little bit, probably with a safety driver, and says, wow, that's awesome. Congrats. You've solved autonomy for ag or for mining or for yard trucks or for whatever. Where's the app that my foreman can interact with? Can you show me what that looks like? Does this integrate with the Oracle system I bought in 1992 and have been maintaining ever since?
Yeah.
How does that integration work? And the way that you backed up to the dock is slightly different than the way that we want you to.
Yeah.
So can you modify this behavior in these 3 really minuscule ways? And if you can't do all these things, I'll watch with interest.
I lose 5 figures an hour for every hour that I don't operate. When can I rely on your technology to take over? And then suddenly the conversation's different. It's like, that's not where we're at the moment.
Yep.
It's like, okay,
like shaky pre-cooked autonomy demos worked for VCs in 2015 and 2016.
Oh boy, did they
work.
work.
They do not work for industrial customers.
They only work for Tesla investors.
Though,
no, seriously
the
though,
place-
though even
sorry.
with teleop. Oh, sorry.
I think like the place who I think should be getting involved though at like this level or this stage would be like regulatory bodies or someone like that who should like have a little bit more experience just to like know where to guide certain aspects of the technology rather than after say like companies start to invest so much going in one direction just because there's no real rules out there and then having to like backtrack or something like that. Like having early regulatory input at least to create frameworks that you know are going to stay relatively consistent. Like that's the moment that regulators should be coming in, and companies should like watch with interest, but it's always the opposite way. It's like, let's give it to companies to like actually like use, and regulators can only watch with interest, which is like, I don't know, I've always felt that was a bit backwards.
I mean, I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
So to tell a Starsky story in a way that I hopefully don't shame anyone too specifically.
Okay.
So as you guys probably know, autonomous trucks are not included in California regulations for autonomous vehicles. And basically the rationale is in 2012-ish, maybe 2011, maybe 2013, maybe 2010, Google went full court press on, hey, California, you need to write regs for autonomous vehicles. Like, we have basically solved autonomy. We are ready to go. Like, write some laws for us. We're Google. We're really great. And like the California DOT, like, to make up a number, probably invested 5,000 to 15,000 hours, like 5,000 to 15,000 man hours of really smart, mindful, thoughtful people to write a set of regulations that we all now poo-poo and complain about and say we're on level 5 and whatever.
Yeah.
Spent an incredible amount of effort to do that, and here we are 10 years later, and there's like, I don't know, 100 vehicles that have ever driven in California without a person in the driver's seat. Maybe 1,000 vehicles in total that have ever driven in the state with anything level 3 or beyond on them. In a state that, to make up a number, probably has 80 million cars. Like, feels like a very safe estimate. So whatever 1,000 divided by 80 million is the percent of value that they got.
Mhm.
Now, in like 2018, 2019, because of a bunch of us asking for trucks to be included, California Highway Patrol was like, yo, let's show us what you got. Show us if this is worth us making a 5,000 to 15,000 man hour investment.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody besides my last company could show up. And as a result, CHP was like, this isn't a good use of our time. We're not going to invest time regulating for a product that doesn't exist.
What year was that?
18, 19?
Yeah, so like a year or two before everybody pivoted to trucks.
Yep. I value regulators. I value ISO, SAE. I've worked really closely with a lot of regulators in my past life. I think there's a lot of value there. I think it's not an adversarial relationship, but a valuable relationship. I think the emphasis is no longer on like, hey, regulators, make our industry legal, but more on, hey, industry, let's fucking do something. Let's like fucking make a product that actually has a value. And if everyone's starting from scratch for every use case, that's not going to happen. So you should all use us. Everyone should switch whatever they're doing to build on top of Polymath. Let's give those regulators something to talk about.
Stefan, just in the interest of accuracy, there is an exception here, and that's Tesla, who is clearly being held up by regulatory approval. Otherwise, they would have level 5 out already.
All the rules that are getting in their way.
Again, it's kind of annoying. You keep overlooking these important little, the facts matter, Stefan, on this show, especially. We really, its accuracy is super important here. Sorry, Moody, go ahead.
Now we're getting like real deep into like regulatory discussion, but which I love doing, but also snore. But for me,
this is an entertainment show, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The one thing I wanted to say is like, I completely agree. Like, going too early with like prescriptive regulation is very counter, because everything is still plastic and still settling in. But creating like safety frameworks, or like saying like this is the acceptable level or the direction that things should be going, and then let's have an iterative process, like as you're learning and doing things, we're learning and doing things, and then let's make this come up together, as opposed to having sort of a hard line that drops years into your productization, which then upends everything that you've really worked on.
I think it's hard for regulators to have an iterative process. I mean, if they're too loose early on, someone angry calls their state senator, and that particular regulator gets fired even though they made a thoughtful, well-meaning decision that was in the interest of safety and like technological advancement, they still get canned. I think it's kind of a lose-lose situation for regulations to lead the market. I mean, a comparison that I don't know if many people have made is that the FAA, or the precursor to the FAA that I can't remember the name of, was actually like sponsored by the early aviation companies who asked for it to happen. So like airplanes, you know, I don't know, the Wright brothers, who in America we pretend invented planes. I think that was like 1906, 1907. Airplanes did some stuff of note in World War One, and then in the 20s, like airplanes were a cool, fun, stupid thing, where people did the equivalent of putting an orange in the Tesla autopilot steering wheel and getting in the back seat of. Like people were doing stuff like let's take a little biplane up in the air with 20 people on it standing on the wing playing ping pong together. That's a good trick. And as the aviation companies became real, they saw this stupidity as a risk to their nascent industry, and basically said, "Hey, federal government, create a bunch of rules that will stop these bozos from sullying the good name of airplanes." I think that's a better model for autonomy, where it's in the fullness of time, in the period after the market builds a product worth regulating, regulators come in and make sure it becomes a serious market.
So I just, since you mentioned it, I just have to say that actually one of Elon Musk's ancestors was actually someone who did these kinds of aviation stunts. Like literally Elon's mom was like one of the first, like I don't know, he did some stunt where she was like the first like twins to fly or whatever, and they flew to some town in the Midwest and did like PR or whatever. The history, you know, doesn't repeat itself, but it absolutely rhymes. So anyway, I just have to mention that. Yeah, no, the other thing I wanted to say too, like about the teleop piece of this, just because like I feel like we're all so used to like seeing things on our screens that like, you know, whoa, that's amazing, but it's like it's almost become so normalized now that people don't appreciate it. And of course, you know, we're doing you the courtesy of assuming that this is not an Unreal Engine, like this is actually a real tractor. And you know, if we're wrong about that, and you are just fooling us with a video game engine, you know, at least I know Kirsten Korosek got fooled too.
I actually, when Starsky when Starsky was trying to raise its B, there was an investor who was like, you know, for me, I'm only going to be interested in investing if you guys can take the person out of the vehicle. So like, cool. All right, that's a goal we can get to. Go to our unmanned trip, schedule a call with that investor, show him a 360 video from inside a Starsky truck with no person in it. It's like, is this so this is simulation, right? Like, what? Just because it looks nice outside in Florida on a June day, does not, like, this is reality. This is not sim.
Yeah. So you know, again, we don't know what to believe and what to trust anymore, and that's just kind of part of the world we live in, right? But I do want to point out that, like, and I can't say too much about this because you know, when people take a risk, right? They have an established demo and they're like, oh, we'll do something that's not the established demo, and then it doesn't go real well. You don't want to punish them for that, right? You want people to be willing to take risks. So I'm not going to name the company or whatever, but the most busted demo I've ever been on was teleop. And let me tell you, when a teleop demo busts and all of a sudden you don't have that connection anymore, like it's harder than, I think it's harder than people think. Now, again, I'm not going to compare that to this. They're different situations and whatever.
Teleop is, I mean, like the teleop is also a very real and very hard product. And like we're not a teleop company. We have a teleop console if you need it, but there's other folks who are building consoles you'd want to work out of for 8 hours a day. But that being said, the safety architecture of a good teleop system is significant. You need to be able to track, you know, when did this message get created? Has it been unacceptably long? How's latency doing? Is latency trending in a good direction or a bad direction? How are we going to know how things will be in the next 30 seconds based on current conditions? All of those are real challenging things to build. I actually think part of the beauty of teleop as a product is in the case where you mix teleop and autonomy very seamlessly, you start to get to the point where you can do entire tasks rather quickly. And once you can do those entire tasks, the question becomes like, are we sure this is safe? And for the companies who are, perpetually 10 years away from doing that first task, they've also pushed off the safety arguments. They've also pushed off all of that. Whereas at Polymath, I think like the second week that we were in this site where the tractor's currently driving around, maybe like December of last year, we were doing a video shoot for this like cool, beautiful promo video that's on our YouTube. I used my same video guy from Starsky who was expecting the robot to break all the time, but within like 2 hours of playing with it on an Xbox controller, had ceased to forget that robots broke. So he wanted to get a great angle where he was going to have the tractor drive to the far side of the field, come back, and then like a beautiful shot of the tractor comes from a distance, and you can't tell if there's a person in it or not, and it drives right up to the team, and there's been no person in it the whole time. So he drives it off. Robot's been working smooth all day, and it just stops. And we can't like get it to move again. The joystick's not doing anything. The computer's not showing you a message that isn't working. Like, what the hell is going on? So we walk to the other side of this field, which, it's not like 20 miles, but it's a nice, a crisp 4 or 5 minute walk from one side of this field to the other. Mm-hmm. We start debugging. There's nothing wrong. We start looking at the whole system, and we realized the way that we were communicating between the teleop base station and the tractor was this like crappy little Wi-Fi antenna that got outside of range by going 300 meters away. Yeah. And the loss of that teleop signal instantly triggered our safety architecture and brought the whole system come to a stop. Which is because from the get-go, we had a system that didn't need a person in it. And teleop does that. Teleop plus autonomy does that even better. And that's part of why that's how we're solving this set of problems.
Awesome. Well, I just saw Moody's real life just intruded, and I think we're basically out of time. Stefan, you've been like super generous with your time. You've also been a really good sport putting up with the absurdity on this show. So thank you. I want to say before you go, I want to say if there's any sort of like new founders or like up and comers in this space, you maybe want to be on this show, or you maybe want to be on the Autonocast or something like that. As far as I'm concerned, there's one way to prove that you're the kind of person who belongs on a show like this. And that is A, find a way to get an invitation to the Autonocast CES party, and B, outlast Stefan there. If you're at the party and Stefan's already gone home, you get to come on this show, no questions asked, and you will also have the time of your life. So that's your PR strategy if it involves being on this goofy show. And Stefan, like, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in Vegas. I can't wait to hang out and have a few drinks.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Thanks to everyone for watching, and hopefully I'll be back real soon.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Stefan. All right, I guess that wraps it up for this week, Ed.
Moody, had you ever driven a tractor before? Is this your first time driving a tractor?
This is my first time driving any sort of farm equipment.
Wow.
So that was... It still doesn't... Are you sure this wasn't just Unreal Engine?
Pretty sure. I can give you access to the Wise camera footage if you want sometime.
No, this was...
I just honestly don't know where that link is.
This was so cool. Like, being able... Like, this is across the Pacific, and, like... The ping is exactly right for like when I'm playing games, like that's exactly the length it is. So it's technically it'll fit. But this is so cool. It's like it's less, but also at the same time more exhilarating than a game of Rocket League. Less because I'm not flying through the air, but more because there is a chance that
we're looking at bringing the tractor possibly to self-racing cars in the next couple of weeks. Joshua Schachter's event that's going to be at Laguna Seca, and we're trying to figure out what the stunt should be. One was like maybe we push a big plastic ball into a soccer goal. The other is just like put a link on Hacker News and let anyone at Hacker News drive a tractor at an event full of people. Hard to say which one might lead to more property damage.
Suggestion: live trolley problem. Set up like a grandma, set up a baby, and then you're like, we've turned off we've turned off your ability to brake, and the vehicle is going straight. If it's gonna hit both, you need to like steer in one direction. So
okay, Stefan, we got to get you off the air now though, because you're completely violating your like Polymath is the new Oracle narrative by proving that you don't have a single fucking lawyer working for your company.
I mean, I'm saying if we can make our system robust from the hordes of hacker news, I think we can make our system robust in your application.
That sounds adversarial to me.
Right, great.
All right. Thanks so much, Stefan. This has been so much fun. I pity the next guest on this show that's going to have to come up with something that's like half as interesting as driving a tractor across the Pacific. But you know what? That's their problem. And we'll figure that out when we figure out who the hell the poor people are going to be who have to follow this up. So tune in next time to find out. You'll be as surprised as we will be.
All right. See you later, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Not Sure How Much More Mobility Innovation I Can Take. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss the next episode. Links to everyone's socials below.